Christmas Day, Cowboys Commanders rivalry renewed. Both teams eliminated from the playoffs. Both teams looking at very different paths to fixing that in 2026.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is Crossover Thursday. Locked On Commanders, Locked On Cowboys, both parts of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. He is Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. I'm David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. We want to thank you for coming through for today's episode. For the everydayers that come through for every episode of each show, special thank you goes out to you, and thank you for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. On today's episode, we are going to dive into some of the features coming up in this Week 17 Christmas Day matchup between the Cowboys and the Commanders, but it's all going to start off with how we got to the position where both these teams are looking up once again at those pesky Philadelphia Eagles, and how we can make sure how the teams can make sure that we are not doing that this time next year. All of that brought to you today, Crossover Thursday, by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Marcus, always good to talk to you. Wish it was better circumstances. Of course, both the Cowboys and the Commanders stuck in what I'm going to call NFC East purgatory, because the Cowboys are locked into number 2. The Commanders are locked into number 3. So there's really there's not even divisional positioning to really go through here. Basically, everybody is playing for pride. And I feel like both teams are going to be disappointed in this because the Eagles have been underperforming this season. I think that's a good way to put it. So both Washington, both Dallas failing to take advantage of it. But where do you see the Cowboys in relation as far as how far that gap is between the Cowboys and the Eagles and closing that next year?
It's difficult to say because the Cowboys played the Eagles really well this year. They beat them in Dallas despite starting out that game 21-0. And then they played them really well on opening night in a game that they probably should have won if CeeDee Lamb held onto the ball. However, that doesn't mean that they're all that close to Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia has had the benefit of just being competent on both sides of the ball, even though that's not really true because their offense has struggled this season. Yeah. Whereas for Dallas and Washington, they've both just been so bad on defense that it's hard to win games when you're that poor on one side of the ball. It's one of these situations, David, like Week 17, whatever, but the result doesn't matter. But I think for both the Cowboys and the Commanders, for the Cowboys, it's just waiting 2 more games to get a new defensive coordinator and rebuild that unit. And for Washington, it's a game where Josh Johnson's probably going to be starting at quarterback. It's a bunch of guys on defense that shouldn't be probably out there. It's receivers who are banged up and a banged up offensive line. No. I just don't know how much you're going to get from this game on Thursday.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a fair assessment because I think that's kind of the assessment for the entire season, right? I think defensively, both teams, like you said, are going to be looking for new defensive coordinators. Even if Dan Quinn keeps control of the defense himself next year, it's obviously going to be a new D coordinator from what we had for the majority of this season, at least. So there's going to be some changes there. And then offensively, the injuries, like you mentioned, even the injuries on defense, although I kind of tend to think the injuries on defense didn't necessarily expose the unit as much as they just kind of helped accentuate the unit's weaknesses more than anything else. I think there's going to be a lot of changes between these two teams, and some of that inconsistency does make it difficult. But like you said, there's some similarities. There's also some differences here. So I do want to get your take on how the Dallas Cowboys go about. Obviously, they got to get a new coach. They got to get a new defense coordinator. But as far as roster building is concerned, no Micah Parsons, but you have some other players. I think Quinnen Williams has been pretty solid for you guys. Looking forward to next year with that. But the salary cap, as much as it doesn't exist, it does exist, at least on paper. The Dallas Cowboys projected to have the least amount of available cap room. In fact, they're going to be negative, so they got to make some rooms. But 2 first-round draft picks, some other draft picks. I know nothing in the second and third rounds. So how do you foresee the Cowboys approaching the offseason when that time comes, trying to close that gap with Philly?
The good news for Dallas is you really only have to focus on one side of the ball. On offense, you have your entire offensive line locked up. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Dak Prescott, you've got Jake Ferguson. The only question is George Pickens back on a franchise tag or a long-term deal? And do you bring Javonte Williams back? You've mentioned the salary cap. I think Dak Prescott's scheduled to make $78 million against the cap next year. That'll get restructured. So will CeeDee Lamb's. So they only have to rebuild on one side of the ball. They're going to cut Trayvon Diggs. you can do it. And the way that Landon McCool and I, my co-host, we've been talking about is you need to find 6 contributors on defense in one offseason, right? And that sounds like a lot, but the way that we've kind of laid it out is 2 first-round picks, ignore this shiny toy of like another tackle or a running back in round 1, 2 mercenaries like Jadeveon Clowney and Dante Fowler, who the Cowboys signed last year, and then 2 mid-level free agents. That's how you get this defense to be a average unit. You don't need them to be Denver or Houston. This is arguably the best offense in the league. If the Cowboys can have, David, the 18th ranked defense in the league, they're probably going to be in the postseason.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think when you look at, the number 5 scoring offense, top 5 scoring offense, I think number 2 in total yards per game, things like that. Like you said, you just need an average, solid or better defense. And you can definitely get to the dance. I think that's fair. I think that's where we were with the Washington Commanders entering this season. Last season, the defense wasn't great either. Try to get there. They only got worse. So you're in a similar situation, but they're going to have to approach it differently because the Washington Commanders have their first round pick, but no second, no fourth. They certainly don't have the amount of draft capital that the Dallas Cowboys have, but they have way more money because, again, even though the salary cap isn't as restrictive as we would like to think, like you look at the Cowboys, $36 million in the hole. There's no way you're going to get those free agents Marcus is talking about. But like he said, 2 simple restructures and you're probably 20 million in the green.
Well, and let me ask you this, David.
Yep.
Washington this offseason, they were very aggressive in trying to build this roster. But when from the outsider's perspective, and I think you and I talked about this in the offseason, I didn't love the strategy of loading up on older players because older players, they break down, they get hurt, they have a hard time getting back on the field. Do you think that's something that Washington is going to keep in mind this offseason? Because you look at like over the cap right now and like 15 of their top 20 guys in terms of like cap hits are 29 or older. They've got to make a conscious effort to try to get younger, right?
I think when you look at Adam Peters, I feel like he's actually going to be a little bit stubborn in the aspect of they don't use the veteran contracts, especially the old veteran the Bobby Wagner's, Zach Ertz of the future or of the team to solidify the future of the team. That they use them to solidify the future as in teach these young guys how to be leaders. And then we'll figure out who's going to play that role long-term at another time while we figure out who's going to play long-term at these other positions. So while they're getting Josh Connerly Jr., for example, their first round pick this year, spun up at right tackle, let's bring in Laramie Tunsil, who can solidify that left tackle position for 2-3 years, maybe. But
by the way, that was a great move.
Yeah, I mean, Laramie's been great, right? And teach the rest of that line as much as they need to, how to be professionals, how to have that longevity, what it takes to be successful in the NFL. That's going to be his long-reaching impact. While other players are going to play 5, 6, 7 years in the future, Laramie's 5, 6, 7 year reach is going to be there. Bobby Wagner's 5, 6, 7 year reach is going to be that way. Zach Ertz, same thing like that. And that's the approach they're trying to take is we can't fill every roster. Like you mentioned, like the defense, like you have those 6 key players that you want to bring in to add to, maybe Osa, Quinnen, the guys that you're going to keep over. Well, those other like 3, 4, or 5 guys, because every defense uses really 15, 16 main guys, not just 11. So those other like 4 or 5 guys that you want to get, some teams will go younger. Some teams will go mid-level, like 28, 29, 27 even. The Washington Commanders, they would love to find that 32-year-old who's won some championships and is just known for his work ethic and known for his professionalism to teach the rest of the team how to do that. And truthfully, when you actually look at it and break it down, the elder players on this team haven't been the ones suffering the biggest injuries. Now, it doesn't mean none of them have. Dietrich Wise Jr. early in the season, Austin Eckler early in the season, right? But Bobby Wagner has been healthy. He's had to do the veteran not practicing, at the end of the season and things like that. But Zach Ertz, other than the torn ACL, which is not an age-related injury, it's an unfortunate play-related injury. Like it's actually been some of the younger guys, Jaden Daniels specifically, that have succumbed to these injuries that have really derailed the Washington Commanders. So I feel like that's an area where the Commanders might actually dig their heels in a little bit and say, like, no, we like the way that our process works in that aspect of roster building. Though I see the question where I think they need to not dig in is either be an all-in team or be a building team, because I feel like
you got to choose a path.
Yeah, last year they did a little bit of both, and you end up right in the middle of nothing, which is you're not really winning now, but you're also not really building for the future because your young guys are getting demolished out there on the field against some of these better teams. So that's where I want to see Adam Peters learn from this last offseason. We'll see what they do. Of course, we'll see what the Cowboys do as well. Both of us will be here all offseason to see how much we can, or how much the teams we cover, that is, can close these gaps. But let's get to the game that's going to happen on Christmas. We've got some key matchups that are not only going to help impact what happens Christmas Day, but are going to build some hopefully positive trends moving forward for the future. Coming up on this crossover Thursday episode, Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's crossover Thursday episode brought to you by Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best time for sports. You've got college bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and it's all happening at one time. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right calls is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way for you to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. Lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and Virginia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to your holiday sports schedule. Their deposits and withdrawals are both quick and easy, which keeps everything flowing smooth. And with their new stacks feature, you can pick up to you can pick up to one player 3 times in the same lineup. So you can go more on a quarterback's passing yards, touchdown, and rushing yards if you want to. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. If you are a true diehard fan of either the Cowboys or the Commanders, the everyday all access tier is built perfectly for you. You get one-on-one text access with the host of your favorite Locked On show, all access episodes, Discord access, ad-free exclusive newsletters, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. So head over to the link in the show notes to join the Everyday Club and unlock that all access tier. The show notes on YouTube or on audio, no matter where you're listening or watching, you can get that link. It's a good time, Marcus. I'm sure that we're 2 weeks into it. I'm sure you guys are having fun with it, just like I am. So let's get to the game on Christmas Day. We got a Christmas present to unwrap, and hopefully it's going to be a good, solid, competitive rivalry game. Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders. It's historic. The Commanders are wearing those Super Bowl era throwback uniforms. They look sexy. They look great. The Washington Commanders obviously want to get a win. The Dallas Cowboys certainly want to get a win. Everybody's playing for pride. What's the biggest key matchup coming up for the Cowboys this week?
Well, it's been the same for the Cowboys over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's their defensive line against whatever opposing offensive line that they've got against. Last week, they didn't have Quinnen Williams against the Chargers. The Chargers have easily the worst offensive line in the league, and the Cowboys did not sack Justin Herbert. They really didn't even get that much pressure on him unless they blitzed. And in this matchup, the expectation is that Quinnen Williams will be ready to go. You're going up against a Commanders offensive line that will not have Samuel Cosmi, who was put on the injured reserve list. If you want any chance of slowing down Washington's offense, and listen, I know that it's going to be Josh Johnson probably at quarterback. I know that this is a banged up offense. It hasn't mattered. Russell Wilson scored 37 points in this offense. Jacoby Brissett got his only win of the season tearing up this Cowboys defense. The Cowboys defensive line is going to have to eat if they want to be competitive in this one.
Yeah, I hate to admit this, but there are Commanders fans, not even Cowboys fans, Marcus, but there are Commanders fans saying, yeah, dude, but Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota combined put up 20 points against this Dallas Cowboys defense.
Which, funny enough, that was the best defensive performance the Cowboys had of the season, like by far.
Yep. And I think that's my biggest matchup, to be quite honest with you. It's this booked reps. And I hate when media does this, so I really hate that I'm actually kind of becoming this guy right now. Like Cliff Kingsbury dropped the term booked reps on us this week and said they're going to lean on the booked reps that Josh Johnson, even Jeff Driscoll, a lot of experience last year with the Washington Commanders offense, already have, which translates to we're not really drawing up anything new. We're not really trying to reinvent the wheel. And okay, I get that approach. You've got a third string quarterback who's going to make his first start in 7 years, because I assume it's Josh Johnson like you do. But the problem with that is the wheel that you're not reinventing is the wheel that Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota used to score only 20 points against the Dallas Cowboys. And again, help facilitate their best defensive performance of the season. I mean, just the differences in that game for those who don't know, because Marcus, I know you're well aware. Dallas forced 2 turnovers in that game. They have 0.7 takeaways per game outside of that Washington Commanders game. They held Washington 205 total net passing yards. They're allowing nearly 260 net passing yards per game outside of that game. And that's really just kind of where it starts. I mean, the Washington Commanders, they were not able to take advantage of a defense that is just easy to take advantage of. And the reason is the Cowboys came out that one game, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, I don't think they've done it again, and basically just kind of revamped their defense, said, this is how we're attacking this Washington Commanders offense. And then the rest of the season, we're trying to do this other stuff. It worked like a charm because they knew their opponent. And it sounds like they're getting the same exact opponent with a lesser quality quarterback.
Yes, and having Quinnen Williams makes a big difference. He obviously didn't play in this first game, but they've been trying to figure out ways to get more defensive linemen on the field. They've been using a lot of 5-man looks, some looks where they get Kenny Clark matched up against a left tackle and try to use his power. It's not going to be exotic. You're not going to see a bunch of blitzes. You're not going to see disguised coverages. It's, hey, our guys are going to try to beat your guys. And I mean, unfortunately for the Cowboys, this is one of the few weeks of the season where their talent might actually be better than what's across from them on the other line of scrimmage. So I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Now, if there is a saving grace, one of the other key matchups in this thing is going to be Cliff Kingsbury's offense, like I said, against the Dallas Cowboys defense. However, we have seen an uptick in the last 2 weeks, and I hesitate to talk about this because typically we see this uptick for 2 weeks, and then Cliff goes completely away from the running game that third week. But I just feel like with the third string quarterback, like you got to keep leaning on your run game. In that first game against the Dallas Cowboys, Cliff tried to do some things with the running attack, but it was with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, with Bill. He got the lion's share of the carries, averaged less than 3 yards per carry. However, Chris Rodriguez was averaging over 4 yards per carry on just 3 touches. Lately, it's been Chris Rodriguez Jr. getting at least a lion's share of the work to start the game. Now, Cliff still has been trying to get Bill. Like there was this sequence. I don't know if you watched it, Marcus, against Philadelphia Eagles, where they were just like, we're going to force Bill through the A gap, come hell or high water. Meanwhile, your hammer running back is standing on the sideline going, I'm big, I'm powerful. Like, don't get me wrong, Chris isn't saying that. We're saying it for him. But the bottom line is that was a little bit weird. But other than that, Chris Rodriguez has been getting a little bit of burn here. Now, I don't think running up the middle without Sam Cosmi with Quinnen Williams in the lineup is going to be very successful, but the Dallas Cowboys, or the Washington Commanders, have had a lot of success running to their right side. So I want to ask you, Marcus, running to the left side of the Dallas Cowboys defense, has that been successful? Has that not been successful? When I tell you that Chris Rodriguez is getting more burn now than he was the last time you saw him, because I know you keep an eye on just about everything in the league, what does that make you think about how this might be different this week?
The Cowboys it's been weird. They've been actually better at stopping the run when that's their only goal, is to stop the run. And that's why I actually think in this game, they're going to be okay. And listen, you guys know me. I am not a big Cowboy homer or just think the Cowboys are awesome. Like I think I picked against the Cowboys on every show this year. It's just this defense is different when Quinnen Williams is healthy. And when they're not playing a quarterback like Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, they are able to focus on stopping the run. And I just wonder, in a Cliff Kingsbury offense, it's not super innovative. And with a 39-year-old quarterback in Josh Johnson, if you won't see the Cowboys dare him to pass the ball and load up the box and dare him to hold on to it and see these receivers can get open, I actually expect the Cowboys to do pretty good at stopping the run. Donovan Ezeraku a lot of times plays on that right side, the left side for the defense. He's been one of the best rookies at stopping the run this year. I think that on top of your defensive tackle rotation will give them a good chance to stop the run.
Breaks my heart, man. Don't get me wrong. Josh Connolly Jr., I think is going to be a really solid piece for the Washington Commanders for years to come. But Donovan Ezeraku was my guy in the NFL draft. And it just breaks my heart seeing him playing for a different team than the one that I cover. But that is how it works. This Christmas, the Washington Commanders, Dallas Cowboys, they're going to unwrap something, man. It's going to be extravagant or it's going to be minor. For me, the Washington Commanders win if they do 3 things that may not necessarily lead to a win in the stat box, but lead to a win for the future. I'll tell you what those things are coming up on this crossover Thursday episode. Locked On Commanders, Locked On Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up this crossover Thursday episode, Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Commanders. He's Marcus Mosher. I'm David Harrison. The Commanders and the Cowboys can win this game, Marcus, 100%. but they can win it in multiple ways. Because you know something, man, people will say there's no moral victories in football. Yes, there are. Every time you hear a coach talk about, yeah, there's this positive we're going to build off of, guess what? That's a moral victory. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's a moral victory. Marcus, I've got 3 moral victories for the Commanders that the Commanders win if they do these 3 things. How are you approaching what happens for what needs to happen for the Cowboys to come out of this game victorious?
First of all, let me ask you this. What is the vibe for Commanders fans right now? Do they want them to win this game?
Oh, no.
Do they? No.
Nah.
Well, because I think Cowboy fans have this really mixed emotion right now where they don't want to end the season on a 5-game losing streak, but getting to 8-1 isn't the greatest thing for this team either. But it's this fine line of like, Dak wants to play, CeeDee Lamb wants to play, George Pickens wants to play. And if they want to play, it's awfully hard to tell them no. And I'm somebody that does care about draft picks, but I don't know in this draft if there's a big difference between like pick 12 and pick 16.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I mean, just selfishly, David, it's a lot more fun to cover a team that wins, at least even a meaningless game. Like the vibes are different. But I totally get like the feeling of it's probably better for the long-term health of both of these teams to lose the final 2 games of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a little bit of a mixed bag, right? There's certainly those Commanders fans who are like, I don't care. I want to see a win no matter what. The NFC East schedule at the end of the season certainly helps because, do you want draft picks enough or, higher draft pick enough to watch, to actively wish for a loss against the Dallas Cowboys? Like, there's that kind of thing, but there are definitely, and probably the more vocal part of the fan base that just wants the draft capital because they're also going to be team trade back. And, they want to see Adam Peters go get that 2nd round pick, that 4th round pick.
Same with the Cowboys. They don't have a 2nd and 3rd round pick either. But for the Cowboys to win this game, they just need Dak Prescott to be Dak Prescott. And I know that's really bad analysis, but it's true. Like Dak has been really good against the NFC East. He's got his 2 top receivers healthy. He's got Jake Ferguson. He's going up against a defense that he knows like the back of his hand. And as long as he plays his game and doesn't try to force things and doesn't try to, throw for 100 yards on every single play, I think they're going to be just fine. So Dak plays his game. You get these guys involved early. And that's the second key is getting off to a hot start. The games that the Cowboys have struggled this year, they failed to score the opening drive of the game. They scored 3 points in the first quarter, and then their defense is fighting uphill all game long. Get off to a quick start, kind of put Washington away in the first half, and I think you're going to be kind of rolling the ball downhill in the second half. And then the third point is get a couple turnovers on defense. I know you gave me the stats. They're hideous when it comes to the Cowboys getting takeaways. But this is a makeshift offense with a banged up offensive line, with a quarterback that has not had a lot of live reps. You've got to find a way to get a couple of takeovers. And if you do that, you should be able to win this game going away. But honestly, the most important thing for me, David, is staying healthy. That Washington field could be a landmine, like figuratively and literally for Dallas. Stay away from injuries because you don't want anything that happens in week 17 impacting how you build your team in 2026.
Yeah, well, 1,000%. I mean, it's not as bad as MetLife, but it's not much. It's not
much
better than
Dallas plays next week in MetLife too, so it's back-to-back bad fields.
Yeah. I don't know if Dak has a hangnail, I might put him on IR from the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, I'm not a Dak hater, but I will tell you the here we go thing just drives me up a wall. I don't even know why. I hate it so bad. So I'm really glad that the Washington Commanders press box is behind glass, so I won't be able to hear it as clearly as I usually would if it was an outdoor press box. But yeah, man, look, for the Washington Commanders, the 3 things I've got here, they're all silver lining for 2026 more than they are for 2025. But they could also all lead to a Washington Commanders victory in the stat box as well, which I'm like you. Like, I would rather get on my post-game live episode from Northwest Stadium and talk about the Commanders winning than the Commanders losing yet another game, especially in the NFC East. But look, fix that running back efficiency. And like you said, the Dallas Cowboys run defense on the side of the ball where the Washington Commanders have the most success running is going to be a little bit better than they're used to seeing. So it may not be as fruitful. But I want to see Cliff Kingsbury dedicate himself to this run a little bit. And if the Dallas Cowboys can get that fast start that you're talking about, Cliff is pretty much known for completely abandoning the run once they're down 1 score. Like, that's all it takes. Get down 1 score in the first quarter, and Cliff will abandon the run game. With Josh Johnson, you can't do that. Like, you literally just cannot do that. So let's see, because if Cliff Kingsbury is going to be back next year, and I'm going to have faith for whatever it's worth that it could actually work with him, I need to see that in that situation you don't just hit the panic button and go pass happy with Josh Johnson throwing the ball 42 times in a 1-score game. Second thing is break the Ben Sinnott ceiling. Ben Sinnott, second round tight end, Marcus Mosher out of Kansas State.
Loved him pre-draft. He did a little bit of everything in Kansas. I don't know why they haven't unleashed him yet, because he was a very good receiver for Kansas State the last couple of years. And
he can run the ball a little bit. He can play your H-back. He can block.
He's great after the catch.
He has been involved as a blocker a little bit, but career high, single game career high, 2 touches so far. Let's get him 3 touches, Cliff. I don't even care if it's 3 runs, brother. Let's get him 3 touches. Let's start to get Ben Sinnott involved in this offense a little bit. That's a very low ceiling that I'm asking to breach here, but that's one of them. And the Washington Commanders win if the defense can force field goals. 44 points, and I know not all 44 points were on the defense, but 44 points given up to the Dallas Cowboys last time you saw this team. I know they're the number 2 overall offense in the NFL. I know they were the top 5 scoring offenses in the NFL. If this defense has any type of skeleton of being one of those mid-level defenses, Marcus, that we talked about at the beginning of this thing, go out there and show that you have that skeleton in place against the Dallas Cowboys. Look, you could give up 27 points, but it's like 3 field goals and maybe a fluke touchdown here, like a dude slips on the wet grass or something and whatever. Like, just don't give up. And again, I know the 44 wasn't completely on defense, but don't give up 44. Don't let them go 3 for 3 in the red zone. You're supposed to have a really good red zone defense on top of it. Like, find a way to have a good showing. So even if you lose, but you do these 3 things, I will come out of it, Marcus, as annoying as it's going to be to some of my listeners, happy with what the Commanders put on tape.
Well, and David, I'm sure you feel the same way I do, that it's not fun to watch bad football. And there's a difference between losing and playing bad football. Like, I think the Cowboys lost last week and the offense played well. They just didn't play well enough to win. But there's been games this year, like against Denver, where they just played awful football. And I'm sure we can name some games for Washington where the same thing happened. You just don't want to be, this is a prime time spot on Netflix with everybody watching as they're opening up Christmas presents. You don't want to be embarrassing. And that's unfortunately what the Cowboys and the Commanders have been at times this year. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's going to do it for this week's Crossover Thursday episode. Of course, this episode leading us right into kickoff. If you need a last-minute holiday gift, the shopping window is closing, or if someone keeps asking you what you want and you just haven't given them an idea yet, ask for the Everydayer Club. You get ad-free episodes of these shows, exclusive Discord server access, and even more. And guess what? There is no shipping time. It literally can be delivered in the moment. In the meantime, make Locked On NFL your next listen of the day, twice per day on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. And make sure you're checking out Locked On Cowboys, Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison. He's Marcus Mosher. Thank you for coming through for this Crossover Thursday episode, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.